Welcome back, everyone. This is a Tornado made by Model USA, company that's long gone. It was a real inexpensive trainer jet. I was going to get into turbines and kind of got put on the side for the last few years. It's not the most expensive kit in the world. In this case, you get what you pay for. I've had to do a lot of work on it just to get the wings level. It was really bad. I do have other jets I could put turbines in, but this was just an easy one to get started. It has a Jet Central Super V on the back, and let me see, I'm trying to read my little thing here. It's supposed to put out 14 pounds of thrust, and the RPM range is 55,000 to 180,000 RPM. The gas temperature is supposed to be 1,292 degrees Fahrenheit, and fuel consumption is 6 fluid ounces per minute, and it weighs about 1.94 pounds with the electric start that's on it. Let's see, what else can I tell you about it? Not a whole lot. That's about all there is to that particular engine. It has, let me flip this over and I can show you what else it came with. It came with all these valves and things. Let me just kind of name them off. I'll start from the front here. These are things that I've added to the jet. I have 2 pressure gauges, one for the retracts and another one for the brakes, and my switches, of course. One for the radio, one for the battery that runs everything else. It has an electric fuel pump, and down here is an electronic fuel valve, and you have a manual shut-off valve. There's a gas valve down here for a butane start, and the computer system, onboard computer, is right here. You can't see it, but the main tank is back in there. Hopper tank is in front, and that's just about it. Not much more to tell you, except that I've never ran it, never started it. I bought it from a guy, the turbine from a guy who just got it back from Jet Central, and I've never ran it, not yet. So let me tell you about the plane itself. Like I said, the manufacturer is Model USA, a company that's long gone. Along with Troy-Bilt Models, they no longer sell much of anything. The wingspan on this Tornado is 63 inches. Wing area is 107.5 square inches. Flying weight is supposed to be 14.3 pounds. I've never weighed this one yet. And they say with this engine, or this turbine on the back, the max airspeed is supposed to be about 170. I've had prop planes that flew much faster than that, but the power plant makes the difference. If you don't know what a Tornado looks like, it looks like a Bob Violet Bobcat, but extremely cheesy version of it. So let's get on with the Cougar build, and we'll get started with there's a question that I got. We'll start off with that question, and we'll roll on into the wing fillets and the filling around the turtle deck and stabilizer and stuff. Be right back. Kits, I think, are the way to go because you don't have that cookie cut. Actually, fiberglassing, painting, you roll it forward, just kind of press it lightly as hard as a brick bat for a leading edge. One last thing on tip blocks is that you want to cut outside the line. SIG Cougar build part 8, the formers. We are on step 29 of the manual. Welcome back, everybody. I know it's going to be back. This is part 9 of the SIG Cougar build. This is a SIG Cobra. It's the 20 size version. It's on its wheels, and the filler is pretty much done, except for the canopy area, and I'll discuss that further into the video, probably towards the end of the video. What I need to do right now is address a question that was asked about painting the inside of the wheel well. I didn't go much into that because my intentions, my personal intentions, was not to paint the inside of the wheel well because it wouldn't be necessary with the polyester resin covering it up. However, if you do want to paint the inside of your wheel well, you may not want to use polyester resin, the Class B resin, because it has wax in it. If you try to paint over top of that, it's just going to fisheye and make a mess. So what I suggest if you want to paint it is either do it in steps and put the polyester resin in before you put the chin block on, and take a piece of sandpaper or steel wool or Scotch-Brite pad and scuff it all up before you paint it. And if I were to paint it myself, I'd be using an epoxy type paint because it is completely fuel proof. There isn't a thinner or model airplane fuel that'll penetrate it, and that would be my suggestion to use, and that's what I would use personally. But if you're gonna do the painting and you don't want to have to scuff it all up, I suggest you go with an epoxy. You still might want to scuff it up a little bit just to get the paint to stick better, but I'd still go with an epoxy paint. All right, that pretty much covers the question. And now I'm gonna get out of the way and we'll go back in time. Start at the beginning of the filling process. So here we go. Okay, let's get started. You can see that I've already done one side, and you can also see the lines that I did just like on the fuselage sides here. I use the same method to shape my fillet. You can also see that I removed the tape, and on an angle you can probably see this little black line right here, and that's actually the lip. It's not as thick as I would like to have had it, but it'll do. I have it sanded all the way back to the very point on the top here. I did a little bit on the bottom, but not much, and it goes around the front. I've already cut off a little bit of the monocoat up front to let me sand around the corner. So let me grab a piece of sandpaper and we'll get to it. Okay, what I'm going to start with is some 80 grit sandpaper. This is 3M brand. I get this in a box at, I can't remember if it was Lowe's or Home Depot or whatever. And what I do is take a small chunk, and actually this is a piece off the end of my sanding block. The rest of it was used up, so I take the end and rip it. And what I do is I just roll it into a tight little cylinder. See if I can do this in the air. Just like that. You get a nice little tight cylinder. And I'll use that and I'll start shaping the fairing. I have it sanded back to the tape line up in here. I have a little bit more to go down here and a whole bunch more to go up here. I've probably been working on this for about 45 minutes before I realized that my microphone was off. Yeah, I did it again. But that's how I do it. I just use the end, and where I want my curvature, I just set that in there, set the sandpaper right in there. The roundness of it just kind of eats away at it, and just keep working it until I get the shape that I want. And I was just about ready to draw my lines, and I still got a little spot right here that's giving me trouble. Can you see that? It's kind of light. It's like a dip in it, and I want to kind of get that as close to gone as I can. And there it goes. I still have to sand up in here. I'll probably use a sanding block and come down to this edge from the side. All right, let me grab my felt pen. To draw my lines, I just use a Sharpie. You can see I've already done it. And lay a piece of sandpaper in there and just mark my line. Just like that. Now that you've seen how I drew my lines, I'll keep on working on this and sanding it until I get it done. And this is going to be the difficult part. It's coming around this corner. It has to be real tight, and there's not going to be much. I don't know if you can see that. There's not going to be much left of this filler up in here. Starting from up in here, it has to be drawn back a long ways. So I'm going to get working on that, and hopefully I'll be done within I would say the next 30 minutes. I've been working on it for about 45 minutes now, so I estimate about 30 minutes and I'll be done. So let me get back on sanding on this guy, and when it's done, we'll continue on with the bottom side. Well, I sanded just about as far as I can go, so I'm going to try to take this tape off. It might not come off as clean as I hope, but it'll come off. And we're not doing too bad here. And I was about right. I was sanding on it for another 30 minutes. So far, so good. Okay, what do you think of that? I'm going to turn this a little bit and I'll bring it in this just a little bit closer. Okay, it pretty much is it. You can see a little bit of balsa wood showing through here. It doesn't matter because this is going to get covered up with polyester resin and fiberglass, so that's not a big deal. I have a lot more to do here, so I guess what I need to do is flip it over and start finishing this edge and then working my way around. So give me a second. I'm going to flip the plane over and probably continue on from there. I had to add a little bit more polyester resin and microballoon back here, so it wasn't coming out evenly with the other side, and I added some more on this side because it was not quite enough as far as height wise, but it's getting there. Haven't been sanding on it too long. I don't want to mislead you and tell you this is not a laborious type project, but it's quite labor intensive. Just take your time and enjoy what you're doing, and it comes along pretty quickly that way. I have to move around to the back side of the model here. I want to get this as close as I can. In this particular stage, since I already have my excess put on there, I want it to come to a nice point the first time, that way I don't have to do it again. But if you do make a mistake, that's not a problem. You just add a little bit more to it, a little more filler, and patch it in. If you don't want to do that, you can always come back later after you fiberglass the model. You put your resin on there, and when you prime it, sand it out, and with the primer on there, you can see all your mistakes. And that's when you use a spot glazing putty to fix your little imperfections, things that are extremely noticeable. Okay, I gotta get in here a little tighter. This is gonna take a little bit of strategic sanding. And all I do is stroke it. With this 80 grit, it comes off pretty quick, and you don't want to keep gnawing at it with the sandpaper, otherwise you go right straight through it and into your balsa, and then you're going to be filling your balsa just as much as the rest of it. Okay, that is one side. Got a little bit to take off here, but I think I'm going to use a different paper on this, probably a 220 to fine sand that out. This is just to rough it in. A little bit more here on the top. That looks pretty good. All right, slide this over. Now this is the way it looked a couple days ago on the other side that I just finished. So let me get started on this one. And when this is done, I'll come back and go on to the next step. Oh, another thing, you can probably see that there's quite a step down right here. See that? What I think I'm going to do, there was always a little lip right here. So I think I'm going to do is lay a piece of plywood in here, probably up around past the wing hold down bolts. And I'll glass that down, sand it in, feather it in. It'll give me more support back here around the wing hold down bolts. It's not a big deal. If I was thinking about it a little harder, I probably would have done it sooner. But like I said, it's not a big deal. I think I'll just use a light ply on here. It doesn't have to be anything real heavy. And then I'll just kind of reshape it. And if I have to putty it up a little bit to get the seam better, that's what I'm gonna have to do. I trimmed off the monocoat back here, and I was thinking that on the front of the wing, I wanted to show you, and back here as well, I wanted to show you how you can trim the monocoat off while the polyester resin and microballoon is still setting up. And it's a real simple thing to do. The polyester resin and microballoon's really soft, and you can just carve it real easy, like a super soft balsa. So I'm going to show you a little bit on that and how to work polyester resin, and then we'll continue on with sanding. I put some masking tape down on the fuselage. That's where I'm going to put some polyester resin and microballoon. And what I'm going to do is mix up some polyester resin and add some microballoons to it. And I'm going to make like a blister. I want to show you how easy this polyester resin and microballoon is to carve while it's setting up, and how you can shape it to make things. It's just kind of another hint as we go along here. So give me a second. I'm going to mix up some microballoons and put a glob right on here. I mixed up about 2.5 cc's of polyester resin, added my microballoons till I came up with a consistency like that, where it'll stay on the spatula here without falling off. And let's say we're going to put a blister right here. So I'm going to put a little wad on there, make it teardrop shape. That's probably the easiest. I'm going to leave that go until it sets up. And I'm going to keep playing with it so it doesn't spread out all over the place, because it will eventually. And when it dries to the point where I can carve it, I'll be back and show you a little bit of that. It's right at the point where I can carve it now. It's fairly solid, but you can just take your knife and just push it right down through it. Something like that. It's not going to be perfect. This is kind of a make-believe type deal. And I wanted a teardrop shape. So my bubble will start here, and I'll just bring it down into proximity of where I want it. And I think that's pretty close. It's not a perfect teardrop shape, but that comes later. But that's how easy it is to cut. So when you're doing your monocoat, let's say once you put your putty down and it's still fairly pliable, you can trim the monocoat off and trim up these fairings to a point where you don't have to sand so much. And this is the point of this lesson, basically. And it's also to show you how to make little things like this to tack on your airplane to put a little bit more eye candy on it, you could say. So I am going to let this dry a little bit more, because if I don't, I'll keep playing with it and screw it all up. So let me let it dry, and I'll be back when it's good and hard. It's a real simple thing to get something like this off of masking tape. All you have to do is lift the masking tape, and you can see that it has already come off. There's our blister that I'm going to start with. It's kind of a small thing to hold on to in your hand, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to CA glue this to a stick. Just makes it an easy way to hold it while I'm shaping it. So let me get some some CA and stick this on here, and I'll zoom out and I'm going to start working on this. It's glued to the stick. I use a little accelerator to make it go quicker, and you can just start sanding it. Let me try to get centered here. And just start sanding it into the shape you want and work it. It doesn't take very long to make your shape. Usually I'd let this sit overnight so it gets really super hard. As hard as it can get, put it that way. And then I'll sand it, but this will work for demonstration purposes. You can see it's loading up my sandpaper because it's not thoroughly cured. But when you sand it at this point, it's real easy to sand. I don't have to put hardly any pressure on it. You can just go at it. Get it close to the shape you want. Just about there. Just about what I want. A little more pointed towards the back. Okay, I'm going to grab some 220. It's a little piece of 220 right here. And I'll just kind of fine sand it. Getting really close. Is not perfect because, like I said, this is just a pretend thing, as a demo. Show you how it's done. And there it is. Oops, let me bring it to the center. Side view, top view. Spin it around here. I'm going to crack it off the stick like that. Take my X-Acto. Clean off the excess glue. You could even take your Dremel and hollow it out too, for that matter. And let me bring the fuselage over here, see if I can get it in the frame. I'll have to hold it up. And it was approximately right there. There, you can see how it sits kind of nice and flat, right to the contour of the plane. I just dropped a little crud on there. Oh, let's see. I can't hold it steady. There it is. That's the blister. What do you think? Pretty easy to do. Take this off of here because I can't hold it steady. I'm probably making you a little wheezy from trying to hold it. But that's it. That's how you do it. I'm going to keep grinding away on this back to level it out. And I got to show you how to carve up a little piece, which was kind of neat. I didn't know how I was going to fit that in to this video, but I did. But this is going to take me some time grinding this in. I'm going to do it the same way as you've been watching me do. I'm just going to keep on sanding, keep on leveling, get rid of all these shiny spots, grind it down. I'm going to flip it up and do this side of the wing fairing, get that all leveled in. And when that's done, I'm going to be continuing on with the front. Get this kind of towards your side here. Oh, I can't do this quite right, can I? But I'm going to start sanding up and around through here, knocking this down. And I'll be doing the same thing, just sanding it, grinding it, getting it down where I want it, kind of like the other side. And when that is complete, I'll be back and we'll get on with filling it around the turtle deck, I think. So give me a few minutes to knock this out and I'll be back. And let me show you what I did. I went up and just basically sanded it all off, and I had to do a little filling around the wheel well. Had some dents and some gouges, both sides. Just filled it all up with putty and then sanded it back down. Not much more to it than that. And on the back side, I just kind of finished sanding it, so just got a little bit more to do. And what I think we'll do is we'll flip this plane over and or move it around, and we'll pop the wing off and see how well that goes. It's pretty much all done. Got it all trimmed off and monocoat and everything's ready to separate, I hope. Sometimes this goes easy, sometimes it goes really hard, sometimes little chips break off. We'll see how it goes. Here we go. Oh yes. Well, I said there might be some damage. There's some chips, big chip and little chip, about the same on both sides. That's why I usually keep that edge about a 1/16 of an inch thick, and this one's only about a 1/64. So I need to go back and fill these little spots. Not a big deal, just gonna take a little time. And so let me do that, mix up some polyester resin and microballoons, putty those all in, and when I get done, have it fixed, I'll put the wing back on it, and we'll take a look at it. Before I flip this over, I'd like to show you the saddle itself. And here you can see the spots that I had to repair. Just a couple little teeny spots, and not a big deal, but look how nice and smooth this wing saddle is. That's the exact shape of the top of my wing, with all the imperfections, where it's going to seal down absolutely perfectly when that wing is screwed down to the mounts. All right, let me get going here. I forgot to do one little chip up here, but I don't think I'll worry about that. And I'll put the wing back on, I'll flip it over, and we can see the top side. Just one more thing I wanted you to see before I flip it over, and you can see how tight this seam is. Right down through the center of this is where the seam is on the back. You can probably just barely see it. And right here is the seam for the wing on both sides. I have a little chipping right here, and I think the problem is when the wing comes off and you pop it out, it puts pressure on these two little points right here, because they're the furthest up on the wing. So when it cradles forward or cradles up in the back, it puts pressure on these 2 points and it chipped that. So I'm going to have to figure out a way to fix that. I may just have to come off and come straight in here and open this wheel well up a little bit more on both sides. I'm not real sure how this is going to work, but I'll play that by ear. Okay, now we're ready to flip it over. Here it is. There's not much more to it. Everything's been sanded, chips have been filled except for this one little teeny tiny spot right there, and I think the glass will take care of that without too much trouble. Not really too much to say about it. It's just a real tight fit. Can't go wrong with that. Let me spin it around to the other side and you can see the other side. Oh, and you remember seeing that big chip was right in here, and that's gone. I'll show you the other side. Let me spin it around, see if I can keep it in the frame. Let's see, this way. There we go. And it's all basically the same. The chips were back in here. They've been all taken care of. I do have 2 pinholes here that I didn't notice before. I think I might have mentioned it, that I got to just pack those in. I might just put a little extra polyester resin in there and fill those holes up later. So, with that, whoa, we'll get putting in some polyester resin and microballoons along this edge and on the other side, and probably on the vertical stab as well. So let me situate myself, get some more polyester resin out and some medicine cups, and we'll get to it. I'm ready to go here. I got all the stuff I need. I've gone through all this stuff before, but I'll go through it again. A little medicine cup, 1 ounce mixing cup, stir stick of any kind, whatever you prefer. I like these little dental metal things. I can keep cleaning them. Got this from my dentist. I've seen these sold on eBay and even Hobby Lobby. I thought I'd seen some there. Now this is like a cake frosting spatula thing, but I use that for scooping up my microballoons. You can use a little spoon if you want or whatever. Catalyst. I put it in this bottle I get from my hobby shop. It costs about $1.50 or so. I put my catalyst in there just to make it easier to use. My resin, acetone for cleanup, and of course paper towel. And for spreading it, you can use, like they send you this kind of garbage in the mail, and sometimes you get these credit card things, and it's good plastic. And I use that for spreading polyester resin. I use the corners for doing the corners around things that I want to put a nice finishing edge on. These are nice to have, so you can use one of those. So let's get started here. I'm going to mix up, let's see, oh, probably a little bit more than what I need, but let's go with 5 cc to start with. I'll probably need more, but that's okay. I can keep adding as I go, mixing more. And it's about 5 cc. I usually don't measure it, but since I have people watching, I want to give some kind of a measurement, at least on the catalyst or on the resin. And what I like to do, I said this before, I like cleaning off the top of my lids on my resin, because it'll get a buildup after a while and you won't be able to get the top off. Whoa, a little much there. And I just wipe it off with some acetone, clean it up real good, put my top back on. Made a mess here. This will dry real fast, but okay. Mix in my microballoons. It'll probably be, by the time I'm done, it's going to probably come out to about 3/4 up the cup. But I start with a good amount. I don't start with microballoons to the top, because when you stir it up, it fluffs and it'll like to spill out all over my table. Sorry I don't have an exact measurement on the microballoons, but you'll have to experiment with that and see the consistency you like. Will probably be different than mine. So it's good to experiment with it and see the for the right consistency that you like. Gonna have to add probably a couple more. Sometimes it looks really, really thick, and by the time you mix it all in, it's not as thick as you thought. I think I might have got it to the consistency I need. A little more mixing here. Well, I guess it's not as full as I thought. I'm only about at 50% of this medicine cup. And you can probably see it. It's right about here. Now the catalyst, they say when you do an ounce, 10 to 12 drops. So you're looking at about 6 drops, but I usually just go with a little squirt. And that's normally enough. Okay, just about there. I'll show you the consistency in a second. There it is. That's what I like. I'll dip it so you can see how stringy it is. That's about where I like it. Maybe a little thicker, but this is usable. The thicker you make it, the easier it is to sand. The softer it is. I just might add just a touch more. The more I think about it. Don't need a lot. I like usually getting it to where I want it before I add the catalyst, because this takes time and it starts to set up. Okay, let me get the plane back up here and I'll start filling it in. We're all set here, and this is going to be kind of tough for me to do over the shoulder type thing. But what I do is I just start laying it in. The curvature on the stick is about the right curvature that I like, so I'm going to go with that. You just keep packing it in, spreading it out. Now my canopy, there's a story in itself. My canopy I had all nicely cut and squared away. Well, I accidentally put a nasty gouge in it, so I have to get a new one. So I'm not going to put that on. I'm only going to go up to about this line here with the filler. Otherwise I'd stop at the canopy. So I'm going to stop short of where the canopy is, so I can fill that in later, and I'll show some of that around the canopy. I just wanted to show you this a little bit going up the side of the model. And I'll stop a little ways up here, get a little closer to where the canopy is supposed to be. Up in here, I think, is where I'll stop. Okay, further back. Now I probably want less towards the tail section just to make it feather in better, but I'll worry about that when I get to it. And you gotta move fairly quickly, because if you don't, you're gonna find that you're gonna have a massive bunch of hardening resin on your hands. And you want to get it while it's still usable, of course. Okay, I'm going to take my excess off. Like that. There's a lot of it too. I can feel it starting to tighten up a little bit on me. And I'll just run my stick down the edge and get all the excess I can while I can. Okay. Starting to harden up on me already. All right, what I like to do while it's still drying is I'll wet my finger with some acetone, and then I will give it a smooth over with my finger. Here we go. And that's how you put on your filler on your sides of your turtle deck. I'm going to wipe a little bit more off here, up towards the top. It's drying faster than I can apply it, so let me put some on a rag. And you can get all this excess off the top here while it's still wet. It's still tacky. And gently nudge it off. This is not quite the way I like it right in here. That's pretty good. And you can wipe it off your balsa wood, so you don't have to worry about sanding on your wood. There. Need a little bit more on my paper towel. There it is. What do you think? Kind of okay, semi-okay? Got a little glob right in here that I need to get rid of. Make it easier for me to sand. That's how to do it. There we go. Oh, you can see I didn't quite make it back here. But you get the drift. It's just a matter of getting your tool in there and spreading it out thin, and then using your finger to compact it to the roundness that you like. It's not hard to do. You can use a latex glove on your hand and do that, but I just use my finger. It dries your finger out a little bit, but that's just part of the experience. So if you don't want to do that, feel free to use a latex glove, which I do have an abundance of. Let me grab some here. One of these guys right here. You get a box of 100 or something like that for, oh, let's see, I pay around anywhere between $6 to $10 for a box. Well, that's all I can tell you about right now. I'm going to go ahead and finish the rest. You've seen how it's done. Basically, it's not any big deal. It's just a matter of getting it done. Here it is. Everything's been sanded. It's all dry. Got it up around the rudder, along the turtle deck. I finished off underneath the stabilizer. That's all done. It's basically the same as anything else. Oh, let me bring the camera in a little closer and you can take one last look at the final finish on the fillet and the turtle deck. There's the finished turtle deck as far as the filler goes. You can see I had to go a little heavy back in here. Had a little bit of an indentation in the balsa wood that I needed to fill up, and that took care of that. I filled in around the front of the stabilizer right here. One last look at the wing fillet. You can see the nice tight seam it has, and remember the lines, they're kind of important to get your shape, because when you look down it and look at these lines, you can see where there's a problem as far as your curvature goes, and that's what the lines are for. And again, the nice tight fit on the wing. And one last look at the seam, which is right here on the bottom of the fuselage. It's nice and tight all the way up through till I get close to where the chip is. Like I said, that's a problem I'm gonna have to resolve. I may just have to grind this down a little bit and fill it. That way there's not so much pressure on the very tip. I might just leave that tip rounded off on both sides. That should just about wrap up the filling as far as I can go today. I stuck it all together to give you an idea of where we're at. I just kind of jammed the cowling on the nose and taped a spinner on just for effect. But in a little bit of a review, the wing fillets are done. The filling around the turtle deck and the stabilizers are done. Until my canopy comes in, I can't exactly do anything under the canopy or around the canopy until I have it in my hand. And for that reason, I'm going to cut the video off here. But to glance forward, I think we'll do some cockpit interior work, because I really can't go any further until the cockpit is done. So I might as well show you how I detail out a sport model cockpit. It's not a big deal, it's nothing fancy. So we'll do that next video. That'll probably take up the whole video, in a matter of fact. I believe there's nothing else to talk to you about. So I'm gonna wrap it up. And until next time, have a good one.